Since the involvement of NASCAR superstars Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick, Jeff Burton, and Justin Marks, the notoriety of the Cars Tour and its competitors has skyrocketed. The racing speaks for itself because it's true, grassroots, hard-nosed late model racing at its best. And we're here to bring that action to light. This is On Tour. Welcome back to On Tour. My name is Buddy Pulley, joined, of course, by my co-host, lead Cars Tour reporter for FrontStretch.com, Chase Folsom, or of course, we know him on this channel as Chuck. Chuck, after a cold, brisk, all the adjectives that represent all the temperature of Saturday night, Butterbean Queen from Chesapeake, Virginia, and Elite Podium Performance are Cars Tour champions. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk more in depth about it, but just the initial reaction to that.
I mean, they deserve it. They worked hard at it. They were close last year. And, if they don't run out of fuel at Tri-County last year, we could be singing a totally different song about this. So redemption for Butterbean. He's definitely going places in this sport, and this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Joining him as a Cars Tour champion this year, it was Caden Honeycutt winning the Pro Late Model Championship over Spencer Davis. Spencer Davis came in as the points leader and things
threw it away on lap 5.
Yeah. I was waiting for you to say that one. Okay, cool. I guess let's talk about the Pro Late Models. I know we don't normally talk about them, but let's get a little bit more in the weeds with them.
Okay. Yeah, and I say that was harsh for me to say of Spencer, but
true.
It's true. He really doesn't make mistakes like that. It was completely out of character.
Except for when he almost runs me over in Victory Lane. I'm not letting that one go.
And he was trying to pass TJ DeCare for second. Honeycutt had already gotten away with the lead. And I know there's a sense of urgency, but you got 100 laps. Yeah. And it's lap 5, and he kind of just stepped on it. Going down into turn 1, he got him way too hot, missed the bottom. He's so loose on entry, and that he corrected it into TJ and knocked him up the track, and it broke the track bar. And then actually, the penalty, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys or not. I found out the penalty was actually for rough driving, not for stopping on the track to bring the yellow, which opens a can of worms, because I don't know that I necessarily agree with the call.
Yeah, that's and that's odd that it was, happened to be the same penalty that stopping on track is.
Right. So yeah, I didn't even know until post race. I was talking to James Pike about it, and he told me that. I believe it was James, might have been Matt Weaver. Either way, they told me that, and it blew my mind, because I don't agree. But anyway, that kind of handed Caden Honeycutt the title. All he had to do was not wreck. He didn't even know, actually. He told us, he really tried to wreck a couple.
I was about to say, all he had to do was not wreck. Oh, it wasn't as easy as it looked.
Well, I'll tell you what, he didn't know that Spencer Davis had problems. Spotter and crew chief didn't tell him.
Oh,
see, he told me he had no clue. And then late in the race, they said free pass 29 car. And he was like, what are you talking about? So that made him, I think that was about the time that he was racing Tristan McKee, and Tristan had gave him the old bump and run. And then,
I think
you want to talk about that restart real quick?
Well, I think that him racing around Tristan McKee, I think that was maybe a very opportune time to let him know, oh, by the way, hey, let's not wreck ourselves here. Yeah,
Tristan
let's talk
McKee,
about that restart.
Dude, Tristan McKee, he's got a lot of talent. He doesn't know when he hadn't quite figured out when hey, don't do that. Because he absolutely shipped Caden Honeycutt into turn 3 late in that race. Yeah. And then he just about cleaned out Brendan Queen in the late model stock car race, which we'll get to that one later. But that restart, so a lot happened. Gio Ruggiero got turned by, I think it was Cameron Boland, into Caden Honeycutt, and then finished off Tristan McKee, wiped him out. Yeah. And it looks really bad at first glance, but once you see it, you realize he got shipped by Boland. But at the same moment, they called Carson Kvapil for jumping the restart.
Yeah.
And this is a week after what happened at Tri-County when they didn't call Tristan McKee for the worst jumped restart of all time. And I don't see it. Like,
No, I
I
mean,
think it's pretty clear. Yeah,
Tristan
go
McKee
ahead.
spun his tires. He spun his
Yes.
tires hard. Like, there's no question. He hit the bump coming off of 4 when he went to get back in the throttle, and it just spun the tires. Like,
Keep in mind, we're talking about the same exit of 4 that has Speedy Dry on it from a hellacious crash at the
yeah,
beginning of the race.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so he said, I heard him go. I heard him lift twice. As in, he spun the tires and he was trying to get it to stop spinning.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I I
If
feel like
well, I kind of get it because if you're the car store and you look at it as, well, damn, I mean, we ultimately got the call, but missed it by a quarter of an hour, and now here we are this week, and you can't let that slide. So I understand they were a little bit more bullish about um pulling that card, but still, I mean, I think ultimately they got the call wrong.
yeah, I agree, but that's a very good point that they're after last week, they're kind of put in a position to make a call.
Yeah,
So, and it ended up working. Well, I say it ended up working out. See, that's the other thing is like, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to get a warning, and he got sent straight to the back.
yeah,
And the caution came out anyway. So they could have just re-racked it because the
yeah,
car that was the leader wrecked. So,
yeah,
um, but they sent him to the back. Caden Honeycutt drove on to the win with TJ DeCare in tow. TJ almost got him.
yeah, yeah,
That's the spot where I think, in hindsight, TJ, he's a kid, so I get it. But he could have used the bumper a little bit
yeah. He could
because
have forced the issue.
Caden was racing for something a lot bigger, and
Yeah,
TJ was racing for a win.
yeah,
But those are the things that's the situational awareness that you learn in due time.
yeah, absolutely. The late model stock race. Let's talk about that. Obviously, we'll get into more detail about the the drivers and the championship contenders later, but this was night and day, in my opinion, from what we saw in August at the new Wilkesboro surface.
So I thought it was going to be a lot worse.
I
I
also
think we
thought it was
all
going to
did.
be a lot worse. Yeah,
And what ultimately happened is and I mean, if it had been 10 degrees warmer, I think it might have been. But it was so cold. Like, I know, guys, we talked about it was supposed to be cold last week.
yeah.
Mother Nature lived up to the hype. It was freezing.
Hmm.
Um,
She stood on business.
she stood on business. So it was so cold that it was so fast that if you made that big of a mistake, it cost you a tenth and a half.
Yeah.
So it was that fast that guys were making a mistake every couple laps, and the guys behind them were jumping all over them.
You
And it
know
was
what's
actually
funny?
creating passing.
Yeah, I told Joe this. I said that exact same thing to him. I'm like, they are going so fast. They're on razor thin edge. It reminds me of when they levigated Charlotte, and they were, I mean, just rifling it down into turns 1 and 3, and they're going so damn quick. And it was they were having to race that more than they were having to race each other. And if you screwed up, it was, I mean, it was still hard to pass. Let's make it clear. But these are also, we got to remember, aren't cup drivers, so mistakes are going to be made, and it produced a really entertaining race.
And yeah, and I watched a little bit of it from in the media center, so on TV, and then I watched some of it from outside. Sorry, I had
You traitor! We were
look.
out there in the
They had
freezing.
heat.
It
They
was
had heat.
we were out there in the freezing cold doing the Lord's work. When you're sitting
So
there sipping hot cocoa with your feet kicked up in the media center,
I
getting a
was making a
getting a
plan for
shoulder
post race.
massage from Marcus Smith, just living
Oh,
life.
whatever. Marcus Smith wasn't even here. Um, but I kind of saw it from both. Dude, there was guys, especially off 4. Some of them boys were about to bust their ass. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but
Brent Cruz a couple times.
Connor Hall, dude,
Uh-huh.
he was slideways off of 4
Connor Hall
multiple
was
times.
running like a bat out of hell.
And I'll give him credit. He didn't do everything that he could have done, but he did everything he could have done with the car he had.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too later.
And
Go
so
talk to
I
Connor
think the
Hall.
race was well above my expectation. And
Whole
so
lot
I
of crashes.
there was a whole lot of dude. Well, that was the entire night. So
Yeah.
no offense. I'm really glad we don't talk about the smart modified tour because we spent an hour and a half on crashes because that's
Yeah.
what they did. An hour and a half on crashes. We were like an hour into the race. We were on lap 30.
Yeah.
Dude, I jokingly said
That was
to
not a
Seth,
very smart modified tour.
I jokingly said to Seth, it was like 9:30, like 20 laps in the modified race, and they started wrecking. And I was like, we might finish the late model race by midnight. Well, we finished the late model race at 11:50, so
You just got in time.
just got in time. But I want to talk about in
Don't
a
change the
general
date on the
sense.
hats. We got it anyway.
Right. Um, how do you feel about the title race in general being at Wilkesboro?
I liked it. I thought it brought a big event feel to it. No offense to
So,
Caraway, but we went to
well,
Caraway. I went to Caraway for the first time this past year. Great racetrack. But if this is the premier late model stock series, or really premier late model series in America, it should be on a stage like Wilkesboro. And I think it put on a decent race. Obviously freezing freaking cold, but it would have been the same at Caraway. Or anywhere else pretty much that we would have gone. I just think that it was it felt to me as I've been to 2 championship races at Homestead and 2 and a championship race at Phoenix for the NASCAR Cup Series. And I honestly feel I was like, they made it feel like a championship event. And I could truly say that in confidence that, I felt the weight of that event by walking through the paddock and just the way it was treated.
you've been hanging around Seth too much and Joe, calling it a
Oh.
paddock. Um,
Yeah.
so I have mixed feelings on it.
Okay.
So the first of all, Caraway was never the right answer. I feel like that was just a placeholder for what they had forthcoming. On the plus side, yes, you have the atmosphere, the championship feel. But on the negative side, stands weren't very full.
Well, hang on.
And I know it was cold, but let me tell you this.
It
'Cause I
was
don't know if
hold
you
on.
know this or not.
I think hold on. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Tickets to get in were $65.
No, they weren't.
Yes, they were.
Those might have been the highest, but they were 40.
Well, because I know multiple people. Kevin told me that their tickets were $65.
Okay. Well, my mom was going to
And
buy a ticket on Friday and it was $40.
well, I
Either
went to
way,
the
it's still
Roval
more
for
expensive.
$65.
Yeah, I was about to say that's more expensive than any other race on the season.
And I where that go ahead with what you were going to say, and I'll finish my thought.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of factors that played into the stands not being as full. Now, granted, you got to remember, Wilkesboro holds nearly 20,000 people. What other racetrack do we go to that holds that many people? Most tracks we go to hold maybe what, 10?
Usually 10 to I mean, there's a couple that are 10 to
10 to
12,
15. Yeah.
10 to 12
I
usually.
would say
But
there's
like
probably 8,000 people there. And as that's not what we wanted, but you got to remember it was freezing freaking cold. And
yeah.
you got to remember it's in that part of North Carolina that was, just outside of that part of North Carolina that was greatly affected by the hurricane. There's a lot of people that might have come to that racetrack that might not have been able to get to the racetrack or might not have had the means to, make it to the race.
And that is fair, but we're faced with a question coming up, right? First of all, look at how my one of my other negatives is look at how many cars we tore up. Well, we
That
tore up a
yeah,
lot of race cars, and we
there you
did
go.
it in August too.
Mhm.
Like, we're talking millions of dollars worth of race cars, and this isn't the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Like, so there's a lot of talk about them cutting down to one race per track. So that leaves the question: do
Mhm.
you come here with NASCAR in May, or do you come here to decide your champion? Because when you
Yeah,
if
you
you
got
only
me
have
there.
one, if you only have one, they're gonna pack the house. I guarantee it. No
Yeah,
matter which one you choose, it'll be packed. Well, which one do you gain more benefit from having? May or October? I would
yeah,
say May.
yeah.
And I think, in my opinion, there is one track, and this used to host the championship events. You probably know where I'm going. We've been to one track this year that stood out to me above all the rest, that has the entire package of the facility is awesome. No matter what, they will pack it out. The racing is awesome. And it's still like Wilkesboro, but even maybe a little more in a way, has the down to earth grassroots feel, but also feels like illustrious enough to have a championship event. South Boston.
Yeah,
I think
I agree.
if we're cutting down to one race per track, I think they would benefit more from going to South Boston to decide their champion and drawing the mass amounts of people they do in May. But I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. That was just a thought I had because I was like, man, it's like a NASCAR question of is less more.
Yeah,
Like, because there wasn't I mean, it wasn't, I know it holds a lot of people, but there could have been a little more people there in August too. So I had the thought.
it's true.
What?
It's true. Um, yeah, I think we've covered it all. There, we'll get into the nitty gritty next after we hear from Chuck with the results of the Wilkesboro finale, right, and then also the top 10 results from the Cars Tour season.
Taking a look at the results from the ECMD 125 Cars Tour Championship finale, Connor Jones picked up his second consecutive series win, followed by Carson Kvapil and his swan song effort in the series. He finished second, with Minnie Tyrell rounding out the year with a podium. Connor Hall, one spot short of a championship, comes home fourth, with the champion Brendan Queen just behind in fifth. A strong run for Connor Mosack. He comes home sixth, with Tristan McKee pulling double duty. He comes home seventh. Caden Honeycutt rounded his year off in 8th, with Ryan Millington in 9th and Brandon Pierce a top 10. Brent Cruz was strong early but faded down to 11th. Isabella Robusto was the first car one lap down in 12th. Dylan Wilson in his return to the series was 13th. Casey Pierce was 14th. Landon Huffman multiple laps down in 15th. And then after that, everybody involved in an accident. Ronnie Bassett Jr. 16th. Ryan Wilson 17th. Parker Eatman 18th. Chase Bro 19th. Jake Bowman 20th. Trayton Lapsevich was 21st, Peyton Sellers 22nd, Trevor Ward 23rd, Travis Beatty 24th, Andrew Grady 25th, Buddy Isles Jr. 26th, and Landon S. Huffman rounded out the field in 27th. And now taking a look at the results from the Cars Tour Late Model Stock Car point standings at the end of the 2024 season, Brendan Queen picked up his first series championship by just 9 points over Connor Hall, who was in second. Minnie Tyrell ended his strong year with a third place points finish by 10 points over Ryan Millington in fourth. They were 38 and 48 points behind Brendan Queen, respectively. Brent Cruz had a strong year with 3 wins, tied for the most on the year. He was fifth in the points, with Trayton Lapsevich in his rookie season in sixth. After that, everybody below them missed some races. Carson Kvapil was seventh. Bobby McCarty was eighth. Ronnie Bassett Jr. only missed 2 races and comes home ninth in the standings, and actually finishing all 17 races. Brandon Pierce was 10th in the standings.
As you saw there, Connor Jones won for the second week in a row. Poor guy. Yeah, he picked 2 races to win where he was not going to be the full story. But a great drive from him in both last week and this week at Wilkesboro. He went and took it from Carson Kvapil.
Absolutely. If there's a guy that's tough to beat in a late model stock car, it's not many tougher than Carson Kvapil in a junior motorsports car. So shout out to Connor Jones for winning at North Wilkesboro. Not many people can say that. He got to ride the lift. I hate it for him because, like you said, it's kind of getting overshadowed because so much is, and honestly,
I don't think
it's
he
not even
cares.
just. I don't think he cares either.
No, he got the
But
he got
it's
the
what
he
happened
got
after the race too.
yeah, he got the Moonshine Steel trophy. He don't give a shit.
Is he old enough to drink that?
I
I
have
don't
no
think he
clue.
is.
I have
Pretty
no
sure he's
clue.
not.
I do want to say, Connor Jones warrants its criticism. Um, Earlier in the year, and then he had that wreck at Hickory, and I feel like he's got his head on a little bit straighter than he used to, and I think it's paying dividends here late in the year when we getting these 2 wins.
We to finish this up, we had this discussion actually when we were watching in the media center, Tristan McKee.
Yeah,
Um, him and Connor both have always had the reputation of being on the razor's edge and a lot of times going over it and it being the bowling ball that took whoever was in their path. Connor's gotten a lot better in the latter half of this year about not crossing the razor's edge. Like he's still on it all the time, but he doesn't cross the line as much. So shout out to him because you can see how much growth he has had throughout this season as a race car driver. So
absolutely. Another driver who's had a lot of growth over the past 365 days, and I use that time frame for a specific reason. Butterbean in the past year has won the South Carolina 400. No, just kidding. He has not. The Thanksgiving Classic. That's what I meant to say. um, he's won the Cars Tour Championship. He's won. He won Wilkesboro last year, and then he won obviously South Carolina 400 2 years ago. Excuse me. He got his first truck ride, got a top 5 in that, and like I just said, won a Cars Tour Championship. Like he has gone from you know local hero that when's he going to get the opportunity to you know make it big to now he is I would argue he's one of the top prospects in even NASCAR right now.
yeah, yeah. It was a couple years ago. It was in 2022 when the Cars Tour went to Langley Speedway. Some local guy showed up with a black number 03 with video game numbers on the side that ran there every week. And for all intents and purposes, he kicked their ass. Not
Yep.
not at the end because it was a close finish. It was a green white checkered. But he beat a full field of Cars Tour guys as a local. To date, probably the most impressive win of any driver in any car in this tour's history.
Yeah.
And that, I personally wasn't keeping up with the series then, but being somewhat of a history buff, I go back and I study these things, and it's like at that moment I would have said, "When is this guy's shot?" Because he
Yeah.
deserved it. And then he got it later that year with Lee. And what did he do his first time with him? Went and won the South Carolina 400.
Yep.
And at that moment, everybody knew, oh crap, this
Yeah.
guy is going to be a problem. And you look at what he did last year. He went on that tear at the end of the year, won
Yeah.
3 out of the final 4 races. And if he doesn't run out of gas at Tri-County, like I mentioned earlier, we're talking about a 2-time Cars Tour champion right now.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not taking anything away from Carson Kvapil because he equally so earned that title last year. And racing's not always about the shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's about what happened.
Yeah.
So the question this year was, can they finish the job? Lee never won. Lee won so many things. He never won a Cars Tour championship as a driver or an owner. He came so close with Corey Heim in 2020. Honestly, the only reason Corey didn't win it is because Corey got COVID and missed a race. Which was actually, oddly enough, Lee's last time in a late model stock car before Martinsville. But then anyway, they come so close last year, and it was, when is it going to happen? And at times this year, it looked like it wasn't going to be this year either. They struggled with the tire. I remember specifically Orange County. They were second in practice. They went out there and ran 22nd all night.
Yep.
And it was like, man, is this team not going to be able to put it all together? And then it was like that North Wilkesboro weekend in May, something clicked with
Yeah.
Brennan. And he was and since the crash at Caraway, we're talking about a guy that was always like boom or bust, like a
Yep.
Kyle Larson type.
Exactly.
Like he was either dominating races or running like crap.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, after he wrecked at Caraway, he finished the year with 8 top fives. Not a single win, 8 top fives
Yeah.
consecutive to win this championship. That's a different driver
That
than
is
what we saw a
100%.
year ago.
I was first introduced to Butterbean at that South Carolina 400 back in 2022. Um, like you, I wasn't too enthralled in late model stock racing at the time. And so I had heard, okay, he's a local kid from Langley, and it's a pretty big deal. They went out and won the 400. Great. What stood out to me, yeah, obviously we won Wilkesboro last year, but what stood out to me was the Thanksgiving Classic that I mentioned earlier last year. Um, with the race he had with Josh Berry and Caden Honeycutt was an absolute masterclass in how a late model stock race should be run. And he went out and beat, a cup driver in Josh Berry and, Caden Honeycutt, who has NASCAR starts, who's a very good late model racer. And he outlasted him and just by sheer racecraft, honestly. And so that was when I knew, okay, this is someone special. And then obviously this year, we were there for Wilkesboro when he ran his first truck race, and he's got a hell of a following behind him. And it was interesting because I mean I think at the beginning of the year we both would have said Butterbean's along with Carson Kvapil the favorite to win this title. I think everybody would have said that, and I echo those words you just said. It didn't look like it was going to happen, but he did everything he needed to do, and the luck he didn't have at the end of last year to make it happen. So, and for Lee Polium, I was standing there by the car when Brendan got out, and to see someone who in Lee who's won so much in this sport, to see him absolutely bawling because they just won the biggest thing in late model racing. That says something. That says something about what this for means to anybody what the car store means. And it also says, speaks a lot to, you know, what a championship means just in general. Because no matter if it's the cup championship, a street stock championship, car store championship, whatever it is, it's still a season's worth of work for those people that you employ and watch grind it out every single week. Driver aside, those people. And then you add in the fact that you have this kid who, got the shot that you gave a shot to, and he's making something of it. And that's, you know, I can understand the emotion.
Yeah, it, for everything that man's done in his career, 4-time national champion, North Carolina state champion,
Yeah.
South Carolina state champion, multi-time Virginia state champion, 2 Martinsville wins, Cars Tour wins, you name it, dude. He's done it all. It, some people are just passionate about the sport
Yeah.
on a different level. Like
Hmm.
there's passionate, and then there's putting your life into something
Yeah.
and knowing this is all you have. This is all you've ever known. And it doesn't matter how long you're in it or how successful you've been. Success never gets old and it never loses its meaning. And you can tell, and I could tell in my short conversation I had with him at Martinsville, that's the kind of person Lee Pulliam is. Like,
Yep.
that's all. Racing's always been what he had. Like,
Yeah.
like that was his life. It's always been his life. And when you get a guy like Brendan to buy into the program in the exact way that you wanted someone to, it's like hey, this is my opportunity to learn from one of the best and make it somewhere bigger. Brendan bought into that. He
Yeah.
he absolutely bought into that, and the fall of 2022 when this deal came together, and it's paying off. And it's awesome to see two people who are so passionate about racing put it together and have success. So I can't really say much more on it that's going to have any meaning because I think you pretty much summed it up.
Yeah.
But it was very deserving. People who show raw emotion in racing are the people who keep racing going and show you
Yeah.
that it still matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that being said, let's hear from our 2024 Cars Tour champion, Brendan Butterbean Queen.
2024 Cars Late Model Champion. How's that sound?
Oh man, that's I don't think there's nothing sweeter than that right now in late model racing. I won those championships at Langley and they were special, but I think this one right here is got to be a little bit bigger just because of being on a touring series and how hard it is to win in this series. Unfortunately, I don't even think I can go. I don't even think I can have me a beverage to celebrate because I got to drive, and that's a no-no. So. Gotta get to Pulliam's by 5 a.m. I'm gonna go to a hotel and get my bags and maybe take a shower. I'd like to, and get to Alton.
So we heard from the winner. Now there's always a loser, and this year it was Connor Hall. His old buddy, yeah, his Butterbean's Kyle Busch to his Dale Jr. Connor comes up just short of a Cars Tour championship
I think you had
after,
that backwards, but
you know what I mean. Uh, but he he led the points from whatever race in the year, 2, 3, all the way up until they got to Tri County. And it's almost like the runner where the legs just finally gave out.
yeah. It's funny you say that. You said to his Dale Jr. He's now employed by Dale Jr. But anyway,
Butterbean's the Dale
um,
Jr. in this situation. And
yes,
yeah, if you
that's
watched,
for next year.
yeah,
Yeah, there was a brief point when I think Brent actually took the championship
that's
lead,
right. That's right. He
but I
did. Yeah.
like, and it's so crazy that that fell apart in the way it did. But that's a conversation for another day. Um,
The one constant throughout this whole season
was
was
Connor.
Connor Hall. Yeah, Butterbean came on late. Carson dropped out. Brent was up and down, and it was always Connor Hall.
Yeah, and you know, even if they had won Hickory, that's not really going to give them enough. Like, there's multiple things you can look back and say, oh,
Yeah,
this compiled into this, and this compiled into this, and that goes for anybody can do that. Like
absolutely.
Caraway, if Caraway was a lap shorter, he wins and doesn't finish fourth.
Yep.
If Hickory was a lap, well,
He doesn't wreck at Wilkesboro
yeah,
in the spring.
that's the big one.
Yeah.
That's the big one that stands out to me because he even said it. He said if we had this car that we had tonight at that race, because they brought their other car to that race.
Yeah.
He said if we had this car, we wouldn't have been back there, and we wouldn't have been in that wreck. And if they had that car at Tri County, they wouldn't have been back there, and they wouldn't have been in that wreck.
Yeah.
And it's more about not as much about the wreck because they ended up with better finishes than they should have. It's just about being back there.
Yeah.
Those are the two that you sit there and you're like, man, that one's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
This was. You want to talk about a guy that bought in?
Yeah.
Connor Hall literally told Barry Nelson at Martinsville. Not sure if this is public knowledge, but it's going to be. Told Barry Nelson at Martinsville when Landon Huffman ran second, if I was driving your car, I would have won that race. So he got the job.
Bold.
Like, he called his shot.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously he's got a really good gig for next year. But if you don't think it's going to hurt for him to not have this one, you don't know Connor Hall. Like,
Yeah.
the dude is as competitive as they come.
You could see it after the race. He was not in the best of spirits, and even during the day before the race, it seemed like it was getting to him that he knew he was at a disadvantage, and he knew that it was gonna take something out of his hands to win this championship. And I mean, he did everything he could. He drove a hell of a race. He was as aggressive as I've ever seen him, and that's saying something about it being Connor Hall. Um, but it was just he drove his heart out, but obviously it just wasn't enough, and it was like you said, those what if situations. What a race here, a race there. He didn't let many slip away, but the ones he did, they definitely counted.
Yeah, and I mean, he wasn't like totally down, after the race. He's like,
Yeah,
we did the best we could on every given weekend. So the best is just there was a couple weekends where the best they had wasn't good enough. But I mean, if he's, and this is kind of dependent on what Brendan's plans are next year, because we don't really know. It's
mhm,
still not decided, but I think we'll get to off season, silly season stuff here in a few minutes. But I think Connor Hall has to be the favorite next year.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Nelson is a great team, but no one's JRM, and so I think that speaks to it. We did talk to Connor Hall about his night at North Wilkesboro, so we're gonna play that. Get a word from frontstretch.com and then talk to Carson Kvapil.
I just think if we could just minimized our deficit on the first Wilkesboro race, I mean, I think it would have been a completely different story. I mean, I think we lost like 20 points that night, and tonight I think it was like 8 or 9 short. So just quick math. Just I wish we would have been better here in Tri-County, and I really think it would have been a different deal. But I'm just really, really, really happy with everything that these guys did between the race here in August and tonight. I mean, we were really off in August, and I mean, we qualified a full half a second faster than the last time we were here. And I know a little bit of that's track, but I mean, it just how good it drove at the end of that race was a lot of hope for think these guys and what they got going on for next year. And I'm all good, man. Like we left it. We fought hard every weekend. I mean, there was weeks where I'd ride around with one body panel on the thing, and just hating life, but just trying to make every point I can get. And it's just I finished second in this thing every year. I've run full time now, and I just hopefully next year will be our year.
Frontstretch.com is where you'll find all your racing content in one place for free. They have it all from NASCAR to F1 to IndyCar, grassroots racing, and even iRacing. Front Stretch has you covered with daily news for every series, weekly columns, and even on-site coverage at every NASCAR and Cars Tour event. Head over to frontstretch.com, subscribe to their YouTube page, and give them a follow on X to get your daily fix on all things motorsports.
As always, big shout out to frontstretch.com for everything they do for us, specifically me, for allowing me to go to the racetrack and then allowing us to use the content that I get at the racetrack for this show. It's been a blast covering the Cars Tour for them this year. So if you want to see any of that season-long Cars Tour content, go over to frontstretch.com or Front Stretch Grassroots on YouTube. That's where you'll find all of your short track racing content. And then all the NASCAR stuff is on the regular Front Stretch channel and, of course, frontstretch.com.
Yeah, thank you again for Front Stretch, all you did all season long and will continue to do for the remaining races we have. I mentioned that we are going to talk to Carson Kvapil. We'll do that after we talk about Carson Kvapil. He obviously this was his last run with JRM, and bittersweet. Obviously, he had a hell of a run, and in his career with JRM, and then at Wilkesboro Saturday night, but just came up just short there at the end.
Yeah, for a little while, we all thought he was going to ride off into the sunset. And not to take away anything from Connor Jones, but it would have been cool. This is one of those proud moments as a short track reporter. You hate to see him go, but you're happy for him.
Yeah.
Like this dude.
If you love something, set it free.
Yeah, right. He's one of the best the Cars Tour's ever had. Tied with Bobby McCarty at 12 wins, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 25% of his Cars Tour starts. That's pretty crazy to think about. That's second all time, only behind Josh Berry. one of only 2 multi-time Car Store champions. He's got 2 championships behind Bobby McCarty's 3. He's done a lot, both for his own career and for the series. And that's just Car Store. He's got an Old North State Nationals. He's now got a Martinsville win.
Yeah.
So and it's not like he had anything handed to him. Like, he got this ride with JRM, and he worked on his own race cars week in and week out in that late model shop. And he got an opportunity earlier this year, just like Butterbean, and he went out and made the most of it. But then he got another opportunity, and he made the most of that. And then he did it again, and he did it again, and he did it again. And he basically left him no choice. He was like, his performance on track in an Xfinity car was, if you don't sign me, someone else will.
Exactly.
He forced Dale's hand, and that's not a bad thing. Like, he just paved the way for himself to have a prosperous NASCAR career because he went out and was clutch and performed when he needed to.
And he didn't just pave the way for himself. He paved the way for a lot of late model racers out there. I mean, we see a lot of kids out here that maybe don't work on their own stuff and maybe haven't had to pave the way that Carson has had to pave for himself. And I think it speaks to, if you put in the work, you will get to a position where you can prove that you are the best of the best. And you can get in that position to give an owner like Dale Jr. no choice but to put you into the Xfinity Truck Series, wherever. So, I mean, it's one, an inspiring story, but 2, a story of that's coming to an end, but it's also just the beginning for him.
Yeah, and you mentioned paving the way for other people. They say one time is whatever, twice is a coincidence, 3's a trend. Well, Ryan Preece did this in a modified, and it was like, cool. Ryan Preece got an opportunity after racing so long and being so successful in a modified. Good for him. And say what you want about Ryan Preece, good enough to be a Cup driver. It says something.
Right.
And then Josh Berry did it, and it was like, okay, that's funny. It happened twice. Well, now it's happened a 3rd time. Now it's a trend. Because now you're going to see Caden Honeycutt kind of got this same opportunity with a truck ride next year. And Connor Hall's got this path possibly laid out for him. And Brendan Queen, that happened.
You see, even Bubba Pollard's getting another Xfinity start.
So he's done, whether he'll like to accept the credit or admit it, he's done monumental things for short track racers all across the country. As like, hey, you put yourself in the right opportunity and make the most of it, and you will earn opportunities further up the ladder. So.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I probably could have, but I'll let you have this one. Let's talk to Carson Kvapil after his final Cars Tour start, for at least the time being.
This track in North Wilkesboro, it kind of kick-started your rise into the spotlight 2 years ago. Now you make your final, for now, Cars Tour start here. Does it have any special meaning to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess this was kind of the big race that I won a few years ago, right? And it was one of those pretty big deals, right? So to come back here and finish it off is pretty special, and to be able to run as good as we did today and had the car we had today, it's even more fulfilling.
So with Carson Kvapil exiting the JRM number 8 car, it leaves the door open, and that door has been filled by Connor Hall. Now, that leaves another door open in the Nelson Motorsports number 22, and many other questions as far as who's going where in the Cars Tour next year. Chuck, what do we know?
All right, so
or what do we have a hunch about?
Your silly season update for Cars Tour 2025. Obviously, we know that Connor Hall will be in the JRM 88. And if you're wondering why the 88, well, now you know if you've been paying attention to the news. And if you haven't, we'll get to it in a minute. Yeah. With that leaves the Nelson 22 open. That's kind of a question mark right now. I had 2 ideas that I had thought, and I struck out on both because Bobby McCarty announced after leaving RNS He's starting his own team, McCarty Motorsports, next
All
year.
right.
He's not running a full schedule in the Cars Tour, but he will run select races with that. So shout out to Bobby.
Bobby McCarty, the one-man party, is going to have his own team.
He's on his own race
I'll be
team.
damned.
So now, no rules. He can be a one-man party. He can do whatever he wants. That sounds like Bobby McCarty. And the other one that I thought might be going to the Nelson 22 is Cade Brown. Well, Cade Brown is filling the Bobby McCarty void at RNS. He's actually taking over a number 4 car for their RNS house car. He will actually debut in that car this weekend at Orange County Speedway, and then will be in that car again at the South Carolina 400. We also know Landon Huffman will be full-time in the Cars Tour with Carroll Speed Shop next year. We assume Andrew Grady and Ryan Millington and Minnie Tyrell will all be back with their own teams.
Yeah.
Brennan Queen's status is kind of up in the air. We're not really sure what's going to happen there. I think there's a possibility he's back. I think there's a possibility he's back part-time because he's getting some truck stuff. And I'm not sure at the same time about the other Lee Pulliam car. KHI, as far as I understand, there's going to be one KHI car. It costs a lot of money to run 2 race cars. It costs even more to wreck 2.
Yeah.
If you guys were wondering why Landon Lewis didn't show up to North Wilkesboro, it's because they junked both their cars at Tri-County. They didn't have enough time to fix them.
Yeah.
My guess is that Landon Lewis has the best shot to be in that car next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he won Wake County, won the prettiest win, but he won Wake County. So they've, KHI and Rackley actually are merging on the pro and super late model side. So that's already been announced to be for Kevin and Keelan. So I would imagine once Keelan is old enough mid-season next year, we might see a Harvick doubleheader maybe once or twice in the Cars Tour. Again,
I would be a fan.
Confirmed. I'm just speculating.
I would be a fan of that.
I think that's hitting on a lot of it.
So where's Brent Cruz going?
See, I'm not a fan of this, but from what I understand, Brent Cruz may be taking a trip to the ARCA side.
It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
I don't know. I mean, I think he could benefit from another year in the Cars Tour. I know we'd love to have him around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, the Nelson thing is the big question, right?
Yeah.
Do they get a veteran? Do they just find a kid with money to put in that car? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that's just about, a good bit of
the heavy hitters.
Yeah. And what we're allowed to confirm.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun off season. Going to be another fun season next year.
Exactly. It's going to be another fun season because I'll tell you what, Bobby McCarty, obviously, leaving RNS, he was absent for much of the second half of the year. But before that, he was, in the hunt for the points championship. So, I mean, to have him back full time will be nice. Landon Huffman, obviously, was supposed to run full season this year, didn't. So that'll be cool to have him back. He brings people to the racetrack as much as, anybody else. So then you have the usual suspects, but I still think it's Connor Hall's championship to lose.
I do too.
Yeah.
Other opening with Cade going to RNS, that does leave the Matt Piercy car open as well, and that's a solid car. So
that is a solid car. That's a South Carolina 400 winning car, correct, from last year. Let me make sure I get my 400s right. Speaking of 400, the South Carolina 400, we hinted earlier the reason Connor Hall is driving the 88 car is because someone else is running the 88 or the 8. Well, this bud's for you. Dale Jr. is back in the Budweiser number 8, and if that doesn't put lead in your pencil, I don't know what will.
Dude, this is like I forget who it was. I think it was Slap.
You were 3 the last time he ran the Budweiser.
I know. Car. I think it was Slap Shoes that said on Twitter earlier, we are reaching new levels of we are so back that we never thought possible.
Yeah.
This is so cool, dude. So I you know, I don't have a memory of actually watching the Bud 8 car, but like as a NASCAR nerd, it's one of the most iconic cars that's ever graced our beautiful eyes.
I will.
Like
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
And to have this car on a late model at Florence, holy, this is sick, dude.
Yeah.
I can't even express how awesome this is.
Let me tell you. So I was a Kevin Harvick fan for 20 years. But I lived in a household where with another race fan, that being my mother. And she was one of the biggest Dale Jr. fans I know. If it wasn't,
That's saying a lot because I
if it wasn't,
guarantee everybody
if
knows a lot of them.
if it wasn't red, it was white or black to match the red. From dish towels to shower curtains to thermometers to anything in that house, it was Budweiser colors through and through. And to have him back in that car, like I said, it is peak nostalgia, as Slapshoe said. We are reaching levels of back that we've never reached before. And yeah, to have it on a late model and to have, it not only it just be the 400, but presumably he's going to run this car next year, at least a couple times, to give the race fans an opportunity to see the Budweiser number. It's bigger than just, a cool paint scheme. There's people that it's been 17 years since he ran that car. There's people my age, maybe and older, that grew up with that car. And now they can, now they have kids and they have, families that they can say, look, I watched this one of the most iconic cars in all of, stock car racing run when I was a kid. Now I get to share that with you. So it's just a huge deal, and I'm more than excited about it.
Yeah, and it's so he's run some cool throwbacks, right? The mom and pop's car was a cool,
Classic.
nostalgic, classic throwback for the Dale Jr. fans. The black and gold Bass Pro car, that was so cool to see him run that car. The Sundrop car is a level above those, because
Yes.
that is peak 90s Dale Jr. short track racing at its finest. This is bigger than that.
Yeah.
We're talking about a car, a color scheme, a sponsor, a name, all tied together that is so iconic. It is literally known around the world.
Absolutely.
There is very few paint schemes that could be recognized by people across the pond, if you know what I'm saying. We're talking the black number 3, the flames on the 24, the red and blue 43,
yeah,
and the Bud 8.
Yep.
Doesn't go much farther than that.
Absolutely.
This is one of people, their entire persona, their entire personalities were based on this car. There's people who have the Bud 8 tattooed on, not even going to name what parts of their body. This is bigger than, this is almost bigger than the sport. This is incredible.
Florence is going to be absolutely packed.
You better show up the day before.
And here's the thing. He runs it again, wherever that is going to be absolutely packed. And you know what's going to happen from that? These people, just like me, I went to North Wilkesboro for the revival to see that Sundrop car race because of how cool that paint scheme was. And I didn't even see the Sundrop. I wasn't even born when he ran the Sundrop car the first time. And a lot of people never saw him run the Sundrop car. They knew he ran it, but they knew the nostalgia behind it, how cool it was. And because of that, if that doesn't happen, if Dale Jr. doesn't run that Sundrop car, we don't have this show right now. That's just fact. I don't fall back in love with short track racing. This is that same story is gonna get told by hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the next year. And the stands are going to be even more packed than they were this year for the car store. So, and Dale Jr. said next year he's running 3 to 5 Cars Tour races, not just late model races, Cars Tour races. So, get effing ready. The Sea of Red will be back.
And he says 3 to 5. You start reading into that. Well, as far as I know, that deal with Sundrop isn't going away. So that means he's got one Sundrop race. When they announced the Bass Pro Shops deal a couple weeks ago, it was a couple late model races with Dale Jr. So just call it 2. 3 for Dale. And then a couple more times in 2025 in this car. We're already at 5.
Yeah.
He can say 3 to 5 in front all he wants. People who know sponsorship know.
Yeah.
So I think, and he said to start the year and then towards the end of the year. So probably way early before he has to do his TV stuff. And then once his TV stuff is up, I think there are some developing stories with the schedule that you guys are going to absolutely love, in my opinion. And I think it'll play a lot into where this car possibly runs again and where he possibly runs again. Just a hunch I have. And I'm excited to see how the next couple weeks play out schedule-wise and announcement-wise, because I feel like once we see a schedule, everybody's going to start to get a bigger picture of where we might see Dale Jr. next year. And look, I know one day this series wants to expand and grow bigger than just the Carolinas and Virginia. And Tennessee's right there. I think they should go back. That's a different day. There's no better way to ensure your growth at a new place than have that guy go run that car.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was the popularity. Look, Dale Jr. was popular at Hendrick, no doubt about it, but there were some off years. Nothing that was peak racing when he ran that Budweiser car, and peak popularity for Dale Jr. Like I said, it's going to put asses in seats, and that's obviously what we want. Chuck, you have a question for me.
I do.
As you do most weeks.
Yep. So I'm going to take some really low-hanging fruit.
All right.
As a kid, I never got to see it, but you did.
Yeah.
What was your favorite childhood memory of the Bud 8?
Man. Oh, man, you got me in my storytelling mood. Okay. There's a couple. I remember when I was 4 years old. My mom was a big Dale Earnhardt fan. I remember we were at a friend's house, and I just remember my mom just absolutely screaming but bawling at the same time, and I'm jumping up and down on the couch when Dale Jr. won in the baseball car in 2001 at Daytona. I that's one of my first racing memories. So that's always been one that's super special. And then the I remember the Daytona 500 pretty well. I remember how big that was. That was the race where I kind of understood how big the Daytona 500 was just in general. And I mean, just it's more than just one moment. It is the entirety of that whole era. That is my childhood. Like I said, I grew up and that's all that was in the house was Bud number 8 stuff. And yeah, so yeah, to narrow it down anyway, long-winded answer. I'll go with that original. It's very cliche. The 2001 Daytona win.
All right.
Yeah. But
yeah, sorry guys, I wasn't alive. I mean, I was, but I don't remember. So
yeah,
my first memory of Dale Jr. I think was that really, really. It was bad. My first memories of Dale Jr. is that he sucked.
Yeah.
Because it was during that time at Hendricks.
Yeah,
he was terrible.
Yeah. Well, here's one thing. I don't know if it can happen, but it needs to happen. Some of those Budweiser commercials were some of the best commercials in general, not even just racing. So I think we need to get at least one good Dale Jr.
They've got
Bud
the
commercial.
licensing back, so I think
Absolutely. So obviously the car store season is over. So what's next for On Tour? Well, look, it's not just a car store show. We will both be at the South Carolina 400. We will both be at the Thanksgiving Classic at Southern National, and then I believe you are going to the Snowball Derby.
I am. I'm going to the All American 400 and the Snowball Derby.
Okay. TBD on the whether or not we can make both of those happen, but we will at least have a show for 3 out of those 4. So
Yep.
we are not done. Tune in for late model stock coverage for the rest of the, well, not just late model stock, obviously, but late model coverage throughout the rest of the year. And then we will see you wherever we see you for the first car store race of 2025. Any last words, Chuck?
Been a blast. Thank you guys for following along.
Yep. We will see you after the 400. Grab some beers, grab some buds, and support your local short track.